Welcome back to History of Simple Things. Today's topic comes from one of our viewers, Joe Paylette. Thanks for the suggestion. You asked, what exactly is skimmed milk? If you've ever poured a glass of milk, looked at the blue label, or wondered why it tastes different from whole milk, you've probably encountered skimmed milk. It's more than just milk with the fat removed. It's the result of careful processing, centuries of dairy knowledge, and even modern nutrition trends. So, how does skimmed milk go from fresh milk to the thin liquid in your fridge? And what exactly happens to everything that's removed? Stick around as we uncover the surprising story of skimmed milk, right here on History of Simple Things. Fresh milk straight from a cow is not naturally uniform. It's mostly water, but suspended within that water are tiny fat globules, proteins like casein and whey, lactose sugar, and minerals such as calcium and phosphorus. The fat globules are lighter than water, which means if raw milk is left undisturbed, the fat slowly rises to the top, forming what we call cream. This natural separation was well known long before modern machines existed. For centuries, people skimmed cream manually to make butter and cheese, leaving behind a thinner milk. That thinner leftover liquid was the earliest form of skimmed milk, even if it wasn't called that yet. Historically, skimmed milk wasn't a health food. It was often considered the inferior byproduct once the valuable cream had been removed. Modern skimmed milk is created using centrifugal separators, not patience and gravity. In dairy processing plants, fresh milk is spun at very high speeds in a centrifuge. Because fat is less dense than the watery portion of milk, it moves inward differently than the heavier components, allowing the cream to be efficiently separated. What remains is skimmed milk, typically containing less than 0.5% milk fat, and in many countries closer to 0.1%. Importantly, this doesn't mean skimmed milk is watered down. The proteins, lactose, and minerals remain largely intact. After separation, the milk is pasteurized to kill harmful bacteria and homogenized, even though there's very little fat left to distribute evenly. The result is a product that looks thinner, tastes lighter, but is still nutritionally dense in many key ways. One of the biggest misconceptions about skim milk is that removing fat strips away all the nutrition. In reality, skim milk retains most of milk's protein, calcium, potassium, and lactose. A glass of skimmed milk still provides high-quality protein and a significant amount of calcium essential for bones and teeth. What does change is the vitamin profile. Vitamins A and D are fat-soluble, meaning they naturally reside in the milk fat. When the fat is removed, these vitamins go with it. To compensate, many producers fortify skimmed milk by adding vitamins A and D back in after processing. This is why store-bought skimmed milk can still list these vitamins on the label, even though the natural fat has been removed. If skimmed milk tastes watery to you, that's not your imagination. It's chemistry. Milk fat plays a major role in mouthfeel and flavor delivery. Fat carries aroma compounds and creates a creamy texture that coats the tongue. When fat is removed, the milk feels thinner and the flavor becomes sharper and more noticeable, especially the natural sweetness from lactose. This is why some people describe skim milk as tasting slightly sweeter, yet less satisfying. Dairy scientists sometimes adjust processing techniques to improve texture, but no amount of processing can fully replicate the richness that fat naturally provides. Skimmed milk didn't become popular because people loved the taste. It rose to prominence during the mid-20th century, when dietary fat became associated with heart disease and weight gain. Nutrition guidelines in the 1960s and 1970s strongly encouraged reducing saturated fat intake, and skimmed milk fit perfectly into that narrative. It offered protein and calcium without the calories from fat. For decades, skimmed milk was marketed as the smart or responsible choice, especially for adults. However, modern nutrition science has become more nuanced, recognizing that dietary fat is not inherently harmful and can actually help with vitamin absorption and satiety. Still, skimmed milk remains a popular option for those specifically aiming to reduce calorie or fat intake. Whether skimmed milk is healthier depends entirely on context. If someone needs to limit calorie intake or manage certain medical conditions, skimmed milk can be useful. It delivers protein and minerals with fewer calories per glass. However, because it lacks fat, it may be less filling, potentially leading some people to compensate by eating more later. Whole milk, on the other hand, provides natural fat that slows digestion and enhances satiety. Nutritionally, neither is inherently superior. It's about dietary goals, lifestyle, and individual needs. Skimmed milk isn't fake milk or diluted milk. It's simply milk with one component deliberately removed. At its core, skimmed milk is a product shaped by technology, economics, and changing ideas about health. It's not a modern invention, but modern science refined it into a consistent, standardized product. Skimmed milk is still milk, just milk with most of its fat removed, leaving behind proteins, sugars, minerals, and carefully restored vitamins. Understanding that makes it easier to see skimmed milk not as a compromise, but as a specific version of milk designed for specific preferences and needs. The next time you pour it into a glass or over cereal, you're not just drinking diet milk. You're drinking the result of centuries of dairy evolution, spun at thousands of revolutions per minute. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.